Welcome to Lee County Pod. Today we are doing one poem. Mr. Pete Melidnik, would you please take us away?
Thank you, Jack. The poem that we will be discussing is The Conqueror Worm by Edgar Allan Poe. And this is a poem of 40 lines, 5 8-line stanzas. Each stanza is made up of 2 quatrains with an A-B rhyme scheme. If I can hold it up here. Such as in stanza 2, by rhyme scheme I'm meaning high and low, fly and go. That's one quatrain, and the second one is things, fro, wings, and woe. And Poe is very consistent with this rhyme scheme throughout the poem.
To ask a question about that, do you believe the rhyming scheme is effective in what it does?
Definitely in this poem. These end rhymes have similarities not only in sound but also in their sense, their meanings. In stanza 2, low and go, one sense similarity is a mortal body at death is lowered into the ground and departs from the earthly world. So low and go. Rather than restricting or limiting, the form liberates the poem's power. And the whole poem conjures an image of a big crowded theater, and the theater on which a play is about to be performed, and it's a play of hopes and fears. And as said in the first stanza, a play of hopes and fears, which is a metaphor. Its meaning is figurative. If the meaning were literal, it might be a play of 2 people meeting and falling in love in a park on a summer afternoon. The worm is a symbol not of death necessarily, but of transience, of things happening once only and being all the more precious for happening only once, for the fact that these things are fleeting rather than permanent. Why is the worm a conqueror? Because death is inevitable. Death marks or means the end of our mortal, perishable, impermanent lives. So in a way, the worm stands for transience, but you could say, the worm also symbolizes death too.
Why don't you go ahead and read it to us, or read it for us?
Okay, lo, 'tis a gala night within the lonesome latter years. An angel throng bewinged, bedight in veils and drowned tears, sit in the theater to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes, in the form of God on high, mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly. Mere puppets they, who come and go at bidding of vast formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings invisible woe. That motley drama, oh, be sure it shall not be forgot, for this phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that ever returneth into the selfsame spot, and much of madness and more of sin and horror the soul of the plot. But see, amid the mimic rout, a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that breathes from out the scenic solitude. It reads, with mortal pangs, the mimes become its food, and the angels sob at vermin fangs in human gore imbued. Out are the lights, out all, and over each quivering form, the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm, and the angels, all pallid and wan, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy man, and its hero, the conqueror, worm. Ironically, or paradoxically, the worm symbolizes transience or death. Death is the conqueror, the worm is the conqueror, but the worm is very much alive, very vivid and visceral. You can almost feel it in the poem. That blood-red thing that reads from out the scenic solitude. Its pangs and its fangs. The worm is more likened to a serpent or a snake. A destructive force here in this big theater, different from a theater that you might find in a cinemaplex, but kind of a theater from the late 19th, early 20th century with balconies and side boxes up above the stage and a big orchestra, and it's all full of mortals.
Given what you just read, Poe lived in the early 1800s. I think he died somewhere about 1850, 1860, like that. I haven't looked that up yet. But his work, how does his work compare to contemporary poetry today? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, gee. Well, for one thing, you've got some words that are archaic. Like I looked up the word bedight. Let's see. I'm not sure if I mentioned here in my notes what it means, but I looked it up, and it's a word that's really out of our usage. You're not going to find it in the 20th century. Another word, imbued. The evocation right at the beginning of it, tis, lo, tis a gala night. All of these things give it a sense of something that was written in olden times, really. But no less, with close examination, we can see, I think, that there's not a word wasted in it. Poe is not just rhyming to get a sound similarity, but as in any good rhyme, there's meaning in the rhyme scheme, just as I had said before with lo and go. And he has here a phrase, the mimes in the form of God on high mutter and mumble low, and thither and hither fly. Mere puppets they who come and go. They come and go at bidding of vast formless things that shift the scenery. Poe has used this term vast formless things in another poem in the book that I have. I forget exactly which one, but he uses that exact phrase, vast formless things, which adds to the mystery.
So, given Poe's, you could say that in our parlance today, he would be considered something of a Gothic poet. A poet who expresses dark themes of mortality and death on a regular basis within his poetry and prose writings. So when he uses phrases like fast, formless things, what does that conjure up to your mind?
Gee, I mean, something beyond the stars. It conjures up mystery, really, the unknown. You know, and mortals, well, we can't predict the future. There's a lot of that has to do with the unknown. And also, I think just as the worm is alive, but it symbolizes death, it's paradoxical. I noticed that at the end of this poem, he says, out are the lights, out all. Yet at the end there's an uprising, unveiling, and he announces the name of the play, Man. Man is the protagonist, we could say, in the play, and the antagonist is the worm, which is the last word in the poem. But it's interesting to me that the lights are out, and then at the very in the first four lines of that last stanza, and then in the second four lines, there's uprising, unveiling, and the name of the play is given. It's almost like the play is about to begin again.
Yes, it does seem that way. There could be a cyclical element to the poem in the idea that you have an ending, but then the play is getting ready to start again. You're in the darkness. You're in the lights have lowered in the theater, and the bright lights have gone out, and you're waiting in the darkness for things to start up again. Sometimes a theatrical production will use lighting in such a way as to unnerve the audience or to give the audience a sense of suspense, especially when they bring the lights down and they allow the space to go completely dark. And the audience has to wait until something happens for the lights on the stage to come up, to highlight the actors entering from whatever stage left or stage right, or the light comes up and on the central focus of that particular scene. I think, oddly, as we're talking about some of the darkness within Poe's writing, I have to wonder if H.P. Lovecraft was influenced by any of Poe's writing. I don't know how familiar you would be with H.P. Lovecraft, but he's a writer of the macabre, the dark, horrific kind of literature that came out in the early, I think 50s, early 50s, 60s, and that maybe a little bit before in early World War II era. But again, Lovecraft wrote very unsettling stories about dark, formless beings and the religions that would surround them, sort of a ripoff of the Egyptian pantheon in many respects, but still you have an old form of worship. And I think with Poe, you see spiritualist themes running through a lot of Poe's work. Things like mediums and spirits and ghosts and the dread of the unknown and trying to find an answer to the unknown. And I think this poem here exhibits that tendency to wait in the dark and having an element of fear and dread about it, at the same time understanding that death is a real thing, but so is life. Life changes. Life, as you said, is transient, and it flows from one scene to another. And I think that in this particular poem, Poe tries to illustrate how the scene shifts from one thing to another, and that there's this sense of dread of the unknown.
Yeah, again, going back to those vast formless things, and one thing that I couldn't help but think of when I first read the poem is Shakespeare's line, "All the world's a stage."
Yes.
And as the scene shifts, something is lost with each shifting, as time progresses. And it's interesting here that no person is individualized in the poem. An angel throng in veils, and he's got something about the wings. I think Shakespeare might have said all the world's a stage and the men and women are like puppets in a play, and Poe has that word puppets here too, but the worm itself is very individualized. You can see it, you can feel it, you can almost hear it seethe, and it's more like a serpent.
Yes.
With its fangs.
Another thing is that I think that the worm becomes the main character. The worm becomes the main character of the story, of the scene, if you will. And again, everything that the worm represents comes to the forefront. Poe mentions mimes, and in a way is illustrating the mimicry of daily life, of how people will move through the motions, just do the motions, and they don't seem to be really vested in life. They act like puppets on strings because they're just mimes. They're not the real thing. They're pretending to be a thing. They're in whiteface, so they could be anybody. And they're whether they're walking down the street or they're baking a pie in an oven, every motion that they do is not necessarily the reality of what they are or who they are or what their life is about. But there is so much mimicry in life that isn't real or isn't authentic. And we go through wearing many different faces. A mime wears one face, but through that one face, he expresses a dozen different other faces. And a lot of times we find ourselves being the palette, or rather the canvas that people paint on us. So you'll say something, I'll respond to it, but is my response genuine? Is it authentic? Is it real? How many shallow conversations do people have every day? You go into work, hey Joe, how are you? Great game last night, And it's 5 seconds of you going through a room saying hello to someone that you don't really know. That all you ever say to them is, hey Joe, great to see you. How was the game last night? That's the extent of the interaction. So again, it's a theater, it's a stage, it's a play, just an actor. Oops.
And things are fleeting.
Yes.
And comprised of what we can control, but also what we cannot control, what are beyond our control. And this circular effect. The motley drama, with its phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not. Like they chase it, but they never catch up with it.
Right.
Through a circle that ever returneth to the self same spot. You know, we are here now. 50 years from now, we won't be, but other people will be. A circular effect, and that coincides really with the ending of the play, how it comes back to the beginning. The play is, we're announcing it's the tragedy man, and the hero, the conqueror worm.
Right. So, in your analysis, how do you think a modern reader, is this a poem for someone in high school and college to really grab a hold of and read it? Is Poe, I guess I'm going to ask the cliche question, is Poe relevant in today's world?
I think if you really sit down and read him, he's very relevant to it, because, you know, I mean, really, I think of, there are good poems and there are great poems, and I don't know if this is probably not one of Poe's best known poems, but nevertheless, it shows his greatness as a poet, really. The tension between a human being's quest for immortality and the fact that he is mortal, he or she is mortal. There's a tension in that, and Poe captures that, I think, in this poem, and that it is a formal poem, really, with end rhymes and all, just gives it more power, so that when he says it reads, there are dashes there, and just at the beginning of the poem as well, that are part of the meaning of the poem. We feel it. You know, it's really a very vivid poem, and it takes in not one individual but the multitude. The image is mostly panoramic.
Yes.
And the close-up thing is the visceral, grabbing thing is that worm.
Right.
Which in the end takes us down.
Right. Anything else? Anything else that you want to highlight about this poem?
Well, simply that the images and the sounds, including the rhyme, really fit together very well with the meaning. To make this 40-line poem very tight and compact, to make it an individual world. One reads it, they read it closely, they experience it. They not only hear it, they see it, they feel it, they take away with it in their memory storehouses something memorable for not only what is said, but how it's said.
Well, thank you, Pete. I think that's all
It makes me want to read more of Poe's poetry.
I agree with that. I agree that it's a good lead into intrigue, the mystique and intrigue of Poe as a writer. I think it also leads one to investigate some of his biography and his history, and also particularly the times that he was living in. Again, I mentioned earlier that the spiritualist movement was gaining traction in the United States at the time. In addition to traditional religious practices, you had people exploring questions about the afterlife, about whether spirits remained on earth after the mortal passing, the death of the body, and whether or not it was actually possible to communicate with the dead. I think people are still exploring those questions today. Is it, are spirits still existing after death, being a part of the physical realm? Can you communicate with spirits, with your loved ones after they have died and been buried? I think those questions are still being asked today. And those questions are outside the normal Judeo-Christian framework for a lot of people. And that's why you see a resurgence of neo-paganism, neo-Norse or Nordic theologies, a resurgence of Wiccan practices and things like that. That's a perception. Is it accurate? I can't say for sure, but I do believe that a lot of people who have questions regarding spirituality and regarding death and the afterlife, they are drawn to Poe because he does write about that in a truly fascinating manner.
One other thing too, Jack, I'm remembering now, Bedight, B-E-D-I-G-H-T, I'll hold it up there. Of course, it's rhyming with night. It means decked, to deck something out or decked out. My contention, my idea is you don't really have to know that to appreciate the poem. It follows the